Alrighty, folks, what's going on? This is Matt here with Dark One 778, where this is the fusion of Linux technology and gaming, and, well, I do Linux reactions as well. So this particular one is 8 things you should never do after installing Linux. So God help me, I hope this is not full of dumb like I've seen some other videos. Now, I'll be the first to say that personally, generically, I'm not a fan of this particular person. I'll let you find it where you want to go. But you know, I'm not gonna. I do not dislike them as I would certain other Linux YouTubers, shall we say. Their content just doesn't speak to me, as it were. This is what I mean when I don't like them. So, to each their own. Let's see what he has to say as far as 8 things you should never do after installing Linux.
Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great day today. Today we've got a pretty neat video. I'm going to go over 8 things you shouldn't do after installing Linux. Some of you will agree with me, some of you will not agree with me. Either way, please drop something in the comments below. Number 1. Never copy and paste random commands from the internet. The first mistake most brand new people to Linux make is copying and pasting commands from the internet without actually understanding them. While it's highly unlikely that you'll copy a command from a website to your terminal and get your data stolen, the chances are there and you should do your best to prevent it. So I always try to understand the commands before ever hitting enter. Of course, Linux commands can be complicated and it's hard for beginners to instinctively recognize a command intended to cause harm. But if you can dissect a command and search the internet for the right keywords, it'll just take 5 minutes to get a rough idea of what it does. It might feel time-consuming at first, but this small little effort that you can put in can go a long ways. So trust me, the next time someone asks you to enter sudo rm-rf-no-preserve-root in your terminal, make sure to Google that command first. Number 2.
Or I have a much better idea. If they're a new user and they don't know what the hell they're doing in Linux, give them what they're familiar with and don't rely on shitty man pages to copy and paste random things from the internet, which we tell them is a security problem. Novel. Tell them to go to Discover, use GNOME software, App Center, Pop Shop, whatever. 90% of what most people are going to need to use Linux for, or their computer for in general, is not going to be the pointy clicky fucking thing. And it's going to be the pointy clicky fucking thing, not the sudo PC hack program thing that you're currently showing. It irks me to no end. Yes, have man pages that are of technical nature, but yes, also have man pages that are for normal fucking people. We live in a Linux fucking bubble and we're always like, oh, don't copy and paste random commands from the internet. Yet all the goddamn help is copy and paste random commands from the internet. Copy and paste random things from the Arch Wiki or the Gentoo how-to, or go to Linux from scratch and the Bible there. Like, we don't practice what we preach. Like a bunch of hypocrisy rolled into a fucking religion at times. God damn.
You never run all Linux commands as root. Linux assumes the user knows what they're doing, and it seldom gives warnings before running a command. This is more so the case with running commands as root. Sudo, su, do as, those let you execute Linux commands as another user, usually the root user. Although running programs as root is crucial in some situations, you shouldn't always add sudo at the beginning of your commands, as it can do more harm to your PC than you might think. By simply adding the words sudo, do as, or su before a command, you're giving the program complete access to your system and permitting it to do anything it wants, including in deleting the entire OS. Programs meant to cause harm take advantage of this and compromise the security of the computer. So remember, only use sudo or other similar utilities when it's absolutely necessary or when you trust the program and its developers.
Again, that aspect right there that you're showing, most, not all, most fucking users shouldn't need to goddamn see. I'm not saying don't make it available or hide it or anything else. Don't go the Apple route and make everything a pain in the ass to work. But this is not something a new user should fucking worry about. Just like package managers and all the other esoteric dumb bullshit that we worry about in Linux. Let those of the technical ilk care, but those of who you're making this video for aren't gonna fucking care.
Number 3, never delete random files in the root directory. The Linux directory structure, it isolates user and system files into distinct directories. The home directory is where you store your personal files, which is right here. And the rest of the folders inside the root directory, if you come down here, are right here. This contains your system and package files. To maintain stability, you should never remove any of these files in this directory. This can cause programs to behave unexpectedly, as you can remove configuration files on accident. Deleting system files can also render your machine completely useless and lead you to a black screen with nothing to do or control. Number 4, never add unknown PPAs and package sources.
So, as far as that particular one, that would apply to any OS. Don't muck around with what the fuck you don't know is what. Don't go messing around with sys32 files and, all the dumb esoteric bullshit that's in Windows. Don't go regedit shit that you have no idea what the fuck it does. Don't copy and paste commands into the Mac terminal if you don't know what the fuck it does. It's the same fucking logic, regardless. Now, there are certain things that, unless you are sudo or root or whatever for passwords, and certain things are made so you can't fucking delete them. But generically, same thought process applies across all OSs, not just Linux.
What is a PPA, you ask? It's a personal package archive. And it would look something like this if you wanted to add it. Like right here, this is for Ubuntu or Ubuntu based. Sudo add apt repository PPA, aculavich light table. And then you would run a sudo apt get update, and then sudo apt get install light table installer. This is a trusted PPA, so you could use it, but there are a lot of third-party package sources out there that you really need to do some investigating before you try to install them. Programs that are found in the official distro repositories have hundreds of contributors and maintainers. People who have...
Or people aren't going to fucking care, and they'll just be generically content with the shit that's in the store. Because instead of calling it a package manager or a package archive or terminology matters to certain groups and certain aspects of certain things and to certain people. The software center, the software store difference. This is the problem I take with a lot of this. The sudo apt repository. This is exactly the crap that I was talking about. How about you show them how to add that stuff from the GUI into the instead of the terminal? Oh, well, it depends on the DE. And well, if you're called Kubuntu, maybe focus on showing how to add that from KDE. Just saying. And if you're GNOME based, show it on fucking GNOME software or App Center or whatever fucking Ubuntu distro based you're on. I don't recommend PPAs generically. I don't recommend most normal users venture outside of the fucking software repositories. What you're recommending right here is being careful, yet you will see most Arch people not give a flying fuck about what they are downloading from the AUR. Practice what you preach. The community is full of contradictions, and sometimes it doesn't want to actually acknowledge those.
who have volunteered to ensure the integrity of the code stays intact. Most of the time, you can trust such programs and install them without giving it much thought. But what about repositories created by an individual with no credibility? That's what you got to watch out for. In such cases, it's important to review the code before installing it on your machine. If you don't know how to read the code, you should drop the idea of installing it for the time being and wait for the project to garner attention. This would bring...
They shouldn't know how. This is coming from someone who's a very, I'm going to be nice and say tech literate person and can do said things like read the code, etc. You're like 1% of the fucking population that uses computing devices. That's the reality. So, no, they shouldn't have to know how to read the fucking code. Fucking elitism bullshit that is. I don't... While most people would joke that the problem with most computing devices and security is between the keyboard and the chair, I understand also the mentality that most general end users view this shit as tools. Unfortunately, some people think that their over-applied knowledge is going to apply to everybody. Different levels of people giving a shit about things. If you're not a car mechanic, you're not going to tell a car mechanic how to do shit. You're just going to let the car mechanic do his thing. You just know that it goes vroom vroom on the road. And you press a button or an accelerator and it goes, and the engine goes. That mentality can cross-pollinate and be applied to technology. You have tech enthusiasts, so you have people who like to build hot rods and know ins and outs of cars. And then you have most people who buy this shit, which, you know, billions of these, and guess what? All they do is turn it on, use it, turn it off, and put it back down. Because it's a tool to get something done. So I get real irked when I see this, because it's like you're applying what you think is your level of knowledge to the same group. No, if they're a new user, this is the same people who are going to be switching from Windows to Mac or Mac to Windows. Different ecosystem, different way of doing things. However, also, if you're going to cater to that group, this crap is not the right way to go about it. You have to understand their mind frame in which they're switching to and from. And you don't have to have a one-to-one, but you have to have a comparable. Google did a great study, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years ago, before Google Docs really started taking off, that most users only need about 80% of the functionality in a device or a service or a feature to care and supplant something else. Google Docs isn't as full featured as something like Microsoft Office or OpenOffice or LibreOffice or Insert Office Suite here. But it does have certain features and functions that others don't. Cross-collaboration and all the other stuff. So a lot of people go to Google Docs instead. They're not wrong. Our community is just so overly technical sometimes that we can't get our own head out of our own ass to actually figure out that maybe we need to have a different mind frame and look at how we present things to people. Now, you can be part of the community and not be a jackass. I mean, I'm an asshole. I'm going to be the first one to admit I am not a spokesman for this fucking community. I rag on Linux. This shit's being recorded on Linux. But at the end of the day, what I take issue with is the approach that people like this take. Because I think it's a god-awful garbage approach. Because they're perpetuating using stupid shit like this. I'm not saying what he's saying is bad. I'm saying what the information that is being presented and the way it's being presented, like the PBA crap here, can be done in a different way. Because you're telling people not to copy and paste random commands from the internet. What is the very first thing you're telling them, showing them? giving them random commands and copying and pasting them to the fucking internet, from the internet into your terminal. And yeah, you can tell them not to do it, but guess what? If someone's gonna do it, they're gonna do it. And it's like telling them not to press the red button. What's the children gonna do? They're probably gonna press the red button. So things like immutable file systems and whatnot, I can see why are becoming appealing. So honestly, I'm going to tell people to use Flatpaks app images and or things like snaps. Stay in the repositories, and if you want up-to-date stuff, go to FlatHub, use app image pool. If you want, snaps, go use snaps. Like, I will always advocate for staying within the default repositories of a distro for applications, regardless if they're crusty or old, quote unquote, like Debian stable stuff, or if, an Ubuntu LTS, over adding random repositories like this. And I'm speaking as someone who uses I don't use the AUR. There's one application that I used to have to use the AUR for, and I don't anymore. It's available as a fucking app image. So, yes, you're correct. Don't copy and paste random commands to the internet. Don't add PPAs and shit. Makes for a bad experience.
This would bring in more contributors who will make sure the program is free of malicious code and can be installed without any issues. Number 5, never switch back to Windows or distro hop. I know there's a lot of people out there in the Linux community go, I love distro hopping. Well, when you switch from another operating system to Linux, you get overwhelmed by the level of control placed into your hands. This will lead you to switch back to Windows, but you should spend more time in Linux. If you're in the same shoes, you'll be relieved to know that it's possible to customize Linux to be like Windows or Mac OS for that matter. All it takes is some time and a few tutorials on YouTube. You shouldn't distro hop either, as it would make it even harder for you to adapt to Linux. Every Linux distro family has a different set of tools and offers a unique desktop experience. Now, most of the time, people I know are brought in by the desktop experience. So what I tell them to do is go out and find the base that you want, whether it be a Debian base or an Ubuntu base or a Fedora base or an Arch base, and then find out what desktop you like. Like here on Reborn OS, you got a plethora of choices they give you, like KDE Plasma, GNOME.
I'm not even going to ask that, because most users aren't going to know the fucking difference between the distros. Even the bases, Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch, Gentoo, Linux from scratch, Solus, and the other myriad of free and independent projects like Chaos and all the other stuff. They're not, if you're talking, like, I'm assuming this is like pointing at new users. If you're talking about brand new users and people switching from Windows, they're not going to fucking know the difference. It is your job, or people within the community's job, to direct people to their project or not their project that might best fit them. So, example, I have people who have asked me for distro recommendations before. There's a myriad of questions I should be asking. What's your hardware? Well, if your hardware is going to require, is say AMD, like this particular machine is a Miniforms Neptune. If I'm running an all AMD system, I'm generically going to recommend that people go with a more rolling style distro, simply because of the kernel updates and the Mesa updates are more frequent than in something like Ubuntu or Debian. Now, you can put those kernels in yourself and those Mesa updates yourself, but generically, the libraries and everything else that intermingle with all that stuff can cause issues. So I generically put somebody towards more Manjaro or Endeavor OS. I mean, personally, I use Garuda, but everyone's got their different style. If you're a NVIDIA person, I'm going to tell you to probably go to, use Pop! OS or Ubuntu Budgie, because it makes the graphic switching a whole lot more simple, because, especially if you're using it on a laptop. Or if are you specifically a gamer? Are you looking for a console experience? Well, go download Chimera OS. I'm not going to recommend Hollow ISO because Hollow ISO has its own issues because it's using a recovery image from the Steam Deck and kind of injecting stuff into it. So tailor your recommendations to what the people are actually looking for, their experience level, etc. If they just view the computer as a tool, don't throw them at Gentoo, Arch, or Linux from scratch. That's all there is to it. So yes, distro hopping, not always the best idea, but sometimes it is for some people because sometimes they don't find that first one what they're looking for. I started out as an Ubuntu guy. I used Ubuntu forever until 2017 when I actually started taking Arch a little more seriously. For me, it was the better experience. Unity gave it a unique flavor, etc. But because my hardware has changed since then, I require stuff that Ubuntu doesn't give me. So distro hopping is good and bad. Giving someone a starting point is fine. And if that starting point works for them, I'm not going to tell them to go run to fucking Arch. Let them find their own journey in Linux. Just give them a good, solid foundation to start. Unfortunately, that's not what a lot of people do.
Deepin, Cinnamon, Cutefish, Yuki, LXQT, XFCE, Mate, LXDE, Budgie, Enlightenment, OpenBox, i3, which is a window manager. And you have plenty of choices out there. So find out what base you want. Find out which direction you want to go with that, and then find out what you want OS-wise, whether it be Debian all the way up to Arch. If you do that, if you take those few steps to find out what OS you want to use and then what desktop you want to use, you'll distro hop a lot less. Therefore, the best route would be choosing a good beginner-friendly distro and stick with the desktop you like. Number 6, never fear the command line. The command line is your friend, period. If you've installed Linux thinking you'd get away with never having to use the terminal, you might be right. But also, you might be wrong. You'll have to type commands into the terminal one day or another, depending on the severity of the problem you're trying to solve. Many Linux distros have tried minimizing the use of command line, which makes it beginner-friendly, and it is great, and you never have to touch it. But the terminal has been an integral part of Linux for several decades, and now it's almost impossible to separate the two. Number 7, never pester your friends and family to...
The terminal should still be there, accessible, and I'm not saying even the help pages and the man pages shouldn't have the commands and all that stuff to do the fixes. The over-reliance on it to fix stupid shit is where I take a problem with it. I shouldn't need to know how to navigate file directories and everything else to copy and paste and move a file. Or how about you just show them insert file browser here, files or Dolphin or, Midnight Commander or whatever file browser you want to use. Select, right click, copy, go to where you want, paste. That simple. Now there are times the command line is needed. Things like sometimes for some reasons changing drive ownership to a different user, or a drive being read only, and for some reason it won't change regardless of what you do from the go. That's different. That's troubleshooting on your own. So there are times you should, it should be there, but the over fucking reliance on it is where the problem is. So the perception is that because of that over reliance on all our man pages and help shit, it shows command line terminal bullshit. That's the perception new users are going to have of it, when the reality is fucking far from it.
To switch, you've managed to install a Linux distro on your machine, and you seem to like it. It's stable, customizable, offers everything you need in an OS for free, the next step would be recommending Linux to your loved ones. You've got to introduce them to the freedom and make them switch, right? No. It's fine to suggest Linux to people, but only to a certain extent. You don't want to be the guy talking about Linux at a party and explaining why it's better than Windows to people who just don't care. Keep in mind that everyone has a different use case and might not be as impressed by Linux as you. If you still feel the need to inform others about Linux and its benefits, why not head over to online forums and leave a comment on the threads asking for OS recommendations. And last, but certainly not least, number 8, never underestimate the power of backups. By now,
yeah, don't be a jackass. OSs and computers and technology are a tool. Don't be a tool and an evangelize. And when I hear goddamn people fucking say, I'm going to evangelize for Linux, shut the fuck up. This is not a goddamn religion. You can have a philosophical point of view, but the rest of reality has a practical point of view. That's generically where I lay as far as that. The reason I use Linux, it is the best tool for the job. Simple as that. The freedoms and everything else, cool, awesome. I still pay money to shit that I use. I give my time on certain projects. But at the end of the day, these are tools. I have no philosophical lean into giving a shit one way or the other about the licensing, because I'll make a controversial statement as a Linux user. BSD is more free than GNU. Just saying.
Now, you know that programs can wreck your installation and leave you with nothing but a blank screen. In such situations, having a backup to fall back on can help. This would ensure your files stay safe even if your OS can't boot. Even better, you can set up a snapshot utility to take a snapshot of your system at specified periods. We have that in Linux, and we got Time Shift, which is a really great one, but once you get into that, you can go download that and utilize it. I've done a video on it, and most of the videos that the distributions that come with it, I point that out. When you run into a problem in the future, you can simply import the last saved snapshot into the app, and it reverts your computer to the last saved state. It's
So a lot of distros that ship with things like Better FS or Butter FS, however you want to pronounce it, etc. I'm not saying all have a snapshot feature that is baked in. I know Garuda specifically has Snapper installed by default, and it takes it's already automatically set up, so you can, when those changes are made, you have an automatic backup, and you determine how long you keep those backups, etc. But the nice thing is it's there. So I'm not going to brag on that. I think it needs to be an automated process that more distros take advantage of. That's all I'm going to say.
It's easy to configure a backup or snapshot utility on Linux, and it's much better than regretting it later. That's my 8 things you should never do after installing Linux. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Either way, please drop a comment below. Do me a favor before you leave today. Please like the channel. Likes keep me in YouTube's algorithm, which means if you found the information in this video helpful, somebody else out there might as well. And subscribe. Doesn't cost anything. And if you end up not liking me, you can always unsubscribe. You also can become a member right here on YouTube for just 99 cents a month, but that's not all. We are also on Utreon, which you can become a member on at $2.99 a month.
So, quick take. I'm not actually going to even really rag on a lot of what he's saying. My biggest gripe is generically just going to be the way it's presented. You know, you have to look at levels and everything else of how people use computers, and that Linux in and of itself is a niche within a niche within a niche, because you have enthusiasts, then you have enthusiasts within that, which is a small majority of people, are going to use your product. So when you're talking about it outside of other people, you have to look at it from the outside. Look outside the bubble as someone from the outside looking in the bubble, and make it clear, not hazy as fuck. And simplify it down to what they would understand. Again, the mechanic mentality. Dumb it down so that the person that needs the information can make an informed decision. Give them a starting point and let them have their journey. Some people will want to have a phone number to call. I'm going to recommend that they go, buy a piece of hardware or go use Pop! OS or some corporately backed distro that they can have a phone number to call. If they're more adventurous, give them something that is a little more adventurous. Arch, Gentoo, whatever. If that's the end of the pool they want to fucking play on, just make it clear that the pool is kind of deep and there ain't going to be no fucking lifeguard more than likely. So the suggestions, for the most part, they're kind of contradictory. Don't copy and paste commands from the internet. Then he shows, don't add PPAs, but literally what's the thing that we tell them to do? Copy and paste commands from the fucking internet. And then we would complain about perception of Linux. Oh, it's all terminal based. And it's like, no, it's not really, because all our man pages are fucking terminal based. It's so contradictory on shit. And I see this shit and it just irks me to no end. I'm not going to lie. And yes, you shouldn't be afraid of the command line, but it shouldn't be the primary way you interact with the fucking computer. Again, the analogy of I don't need to know how to use the MV command or the CP command from the terminal to move and copy files that I can do as a user from the fucking GUI. But all our man pages show that shit. That's where the problem is. So yes, don't be afraid of stuff. I'm not even going to say that all the recommendations are bad, but there's a lot of idiosyncrasies within the community that people don't also understand either. So, you can say dumb it down. You can say whatever you will in that regard, but I'm just going to simply say, learn to speak to a general audience and not just the echo chamber audience and the bubble audience.